What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to review the new Beautiful Death record, Finis. Beautiful Death is a hyperactive, dark neo-folk project from Australia. Beautiful Death is also apparently a black metal project, although I actually haven't heard any of his black metal material, but I have heard 7 or 8 folk releases from this guy because he's just so prolific, like completely hyperactive. It's actually very impressive, the amount of music he releases. I would love to actually sit down and listen to some of his black metal just to see quality-wise if it stacks up with his folk output. But it's cool to see both of these genres that I love, you know, kind of falling under the same umbrella. So this record is probably about 30 minutes. You know, it almost flirts with like EP length release, but there's just something incredibly potent and moving about the not only the songs on the record, but the tones, like the guitar tones, and I think there's even like a synth used, you know, pretty frequently throughout the record. I'll get more into that a bit later, but by way of, I guess, introduction, I want to travel back 10 years to high school when I used to just, probably like many of you, troll the internet for new music. And I'm sure at some point I Googled, you know, dark, spooky, acoustic music for troubled teens. I'm just kidding, but I did probably Google some combination of the first few words in that sentence. And I stumbled across a project called Seabuckthorn. And Seabuckthorn is a similar project, actually, from the UK. Guy's name is Andy Cartwright. And his first 4 or 5 releases were just this amazing, cinematic, stripped down folk music that I had never, up until hearing this release, I had never heard replicated in any way. There's something incredibly, there's just an emotional resonance that I get when I listen to those early Seabuckthorn releases, and I had kind of despaired of never finding another project that made me feel that same way, and finally Beautiful Death has managed to do it. And I'm not saying, you know, Seabuckthorn I don't even think is like a huge project, so I'm not implying that Beautiful Death is ripping off Seabuckthorn or trying to sound like Seabuckthorn. But there's just a parallel in the way that these releases make me feel. There's a sense of like nostalgia and, I guess, quiet adventure. There's just this undercurrent. I don't know what it is, but there's an undercurrent on music that sounds like this that just I find really emotionally moving. Specifically, you know, this is a Beautiful Death review, but I do want to recommend the EP In Nightfall by Seabuckthorn. I think it's his first release. You can find it on Bandcamp. I think it's on Spotify. Absolutely check that out if you like folk music. It's amazing. But all of that is a very long introduction to the emotional impact that Finis had on me. Because, you know, there's an undercurrent, there's a je ne sais quoi on this release that just really, really gripped me right away. And in a way that previous Beautiful Death records haven't. And I've liked Beautiful Death for a long time, but there's just something about this one. I think it's largely due to this guitar tone that I'll get into here. It just makes me feel nostalgic for something I can't even verbalize. There's I don't know, there's a potency. I'm almost at a loss for words. It has to be heard to be understood, because especially with music that doesn't have vocals, I feel like the listener kind of imparts their own meaning and experiences onto these songs. Not just Beautiful Death, but really all instrumental music, classical music, maybe even EDM. I don't really know how, but I'm sure some people do have, you know, strong emotional reactions to EDM music. And I think it's interesting how music that doesn't have a human voice involved can be sort of, you kind of interact with it in a way that you don't with music that has vocals. And so when I listen to these, it's interesting to me because when musicians name instrumental songs, they're kind of giving you a glimpse into what that song evokes to them. So like, for a made-up example, you know, he could have a song called, you know, Foggy Forest at Night, and that would show you what he thinks that music evokes. But then if you listen to it and you hear, you know, Sunny Hike, you know, that's not wrong. There's nothing like incorrect about that. You're just having a very different reaction to the music that someone else created. So, I mean, this applies to all music in general, but I really think with instrumental music, you're interfacing with it in a way that maybe a level you don't quite get with music, with, you know, vocals and lyrics and just human voices in general. So the guitar tone that I've referenced numerous times now is, you know, I'm not even sure it's a guitar. It's highly affected. It's very reverby. It could be a synth. I'm not certain, but he uses it to just complement and sort of emphasize riffs and emotional moments on the record that I just think works to great effect. It is incredibly moving. You know, there's a sense of rise and fall on the record, because let's be honest, you know, listening to just an acoustic guitar for the length of an entire record, it can be a little samey. I don't, you know, I can think of records I like that are just acoustic guitar, but you're doing your listener a favor by adding some texture, you know, some extra layers to really enhance the compositions that you're releasing. And Beautiful Death does a great job doing that, because whatever this instrument is, guitar, synth, who knows, it just kind of punctuates, you know, moments on the record. So it makes it feel very like there's a flow, you know, there's a flow to the entirety of the record. And Helena is easily my favorite Beautiful Death song ever. It is so incredibly powerful for me. You know, you may listen to it and be like, I don't like this at all, but I'm just trying to convey how much I enjoy the entire record, just knowing that track is on it. And of course, you know, all the tracks on the record are great in their own way. Track 2, Hell, and then track 5, Desert Thief of Sanity, I believe, are also notable standout tracks. They're kind of longer, more cinematic tracks. Whereas Helena is just this, like, it's not simplistic. Well, no, it kind of is. It's just a simplistic melody that he repeats numerous times over the course of the track. And it's just, I mean, it reminds me of, like, childhood, or just, like, you know, easier days that you didn't quite appreciate until you looked back at them. And not to be too heavy-handed, but it's just very, very moving for me. And I don't know, I hope you get the same thing out of it if you check this record out. I am very, very excited that Beautiful Death is such a prolific project, because I'm sure he'll release more music this year, and I'm sure he'll continue to do that more and more into the future. So I'm going to make a point of checking out his black metal releases. Give this record a listen. I'm probably going to review more folk, more stuff outside the realm of just black metal on this channel, because I'm kind of at an interesting point where I almost have like 500 subscribers on the channel, which is great, and I appreciate everyone. I really do appreciate everyone who has subscribed. But I still feel like, you know, I have a little freedom to kind of play around with the format and maybe, you know, review stuff that interests me outside of black metal, and also see kind of what viewers care about me talking about, if that makes sense. So you know, I may even do like a movie or two, just, you know, movies that kind of relate to the things I like about black metal and folk, you know, nature and isolation and sort of existential themes and things like that. You know, maybe not. I'm not really, you know, I don't consider myself like a particularly talented reviewer. I just really enjoy talking about things that move me, art specifically that moves me. So anyway, enough rambling. Like, subscribe, share the video if you feel like you know someone who may enjoy this record, and I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.